Okay. Okay, Year 12, what we're going to do now is the sestet. But before we do, I just wanted to talk about the iambic pentameter. I missed that off the earlier podcast. Um, it appears on the surface, like Dolce Decorum Est, to be in iambic pentameter. What pass in bells for these who die as cattle, definitely iambic. But and as you go through it, though, you notice if you try and do that through the whole way through, you'll notice that um, Owen adds syllables to lines, and he also uses trochees rather than iambs. Trochee, again, not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. He is Savernus. So the iamb is that da-dum, 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 that heartbeat, whereas the trochee is the opposite of that. So the stress is on the first syllable rather than the second, whereas in the iamb the stress is on the second syllable. Okay, and that's important because it's similar to Dolce Decorum Est, and it's showing that he's playing around with poetic conventions to get to perhaps an underlying truth, suggesting that the traditional is not enough to contain what is happening in the war and what Owen is seeing when he's there, when he's seeing all these soldiers die. So now onto the sestet. We start with an interrogatory again, interrogative, the rhetorical question that echoes the pattern of the octave, but where the octave was about the sounds and starting very loudly, this particular stanza is more about the visual imagery, and it ends very quietly. Okay, what candles may be held to speed them all? Candles are a symbol of the church funeral. I wanted to say celebrations, and that's not the right word. But the funeral rite, it's part of the funeral rite, and it is lit a light to speed them all. To speed them all is to send them on their way, send them into heaven. Then we have not, which kind of echoes what's going up here in the octave, but not in the hands of boys. And this is a direct reference to our soldiers now, the boys, and links to the idea that they are youth. They're not men if you look at Dolce, he talks about them being bent, doubled like old, forgotten the words, like old beggar sacks, knock-kneed, coffin-like hags, and he gives us the idea that they're men, but when he's truly talking about them, so in Dolce he's got the idea that they've aged prematurely, but when he's truly talking about them with his honesty, he refers to them as boys. He refers to them as boys in Dolce, and he refers to them as boys here. Notice here as well we have hands, eyes, brows, as the just these almost like a metonymy, this just using just a partial reference to represent the whole, which kind of goes with the who that's up here in sorry, don't know what happened there. My computer has just decided to play strange games on you. I don't know what's happened, but it's like what's happened here with the who. And sorry, my computer is not working at all. Sorry, everybody, I don't know what happened there. I can't make it scroll. There we go. And we have that just sort of stick in there. Sorry, everybody. Let's keep going, though. Okay, so not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbyes. So the only light, there's no light for the candles. It's only what is being seen at the battlefield. And so the light, the candle is only in the eyes of those who are there. The holy glimmers, again, a spiritual reference. Glimmers meaning dim light, kind of like the misty panes of Dolce Decorum Est. And that's a dim goodbye. as it, it's really minimizing now and reducing what's going on. The pallor of girls' brows, the pallor being the paleness of their skin. I think I might have in the previous video said that was a church word. It's not. Paul is the church word. The pallor is the color of the girls, the paleness of their skin, that's come from the shock of finding out that their the loved one has died. And it's also links again to Dolce Decorum Est when we talked about the ecstasy of fumbling and the sexual illusion in there, where they should be at home falling in love and having that first sexual experience and procreating and so on. And here the same, we've got the idea that there is girls, not women, girls who have been left behind. So a loss, an innocence there that has been left behind as well. And so even the girls have to pay a sacrifice now because of what's happened. And so the girls' brows, the paleness of their brows shall be their pall, the cloth that goes over the coffin. There, and I don't know why there is a Q just there. I don't know what's going on with my computer. Sorry, everybody. I don't even know if I can get rid of that. Their flowers, the tenderness of patient minds. So there's no flowers to be laid on their coffin or at their grave, just the tenderness of patient minds, and at each slow dusk a drawing down of blinds. Notice sorry, my computer. Notice the alliteration of the D's, and then you've got that long vowel sound, slow, and here as well, slow dusk, a drawing down of blinds. It gives it an emotional end, a quiet end, and it slows the pace down. That is contrasted significantly to what's going on in the octave with the very loud noise of the first octave, as opposed to what's going on in the sestet. So you can see there's a lot of religious illusion being in it, a lot of religious symbolism. And what you've got going on is this idea that perhaps Owen has been satirical in his nature. He's definitely been ironic. He uses the church symbolism ironically as an ironic trope throughout the poem. And arguably what he's doing by suggesting that there is nothing but the tenderness of patient minds. He is criticizing the church. He's criticizing everyone back at home who is sending these boys to their certain death. It is a doomed youth. It is a certain death. And it links us to Dolce Decorum Est, where we have that old lie, Dolce Decorum Est pro patria more. It's a similar theme in that regard. We also get the idea of the futility of war, the dehumanization of war, the idea that they're going to the slaughter, the cattle house. And there's also that contextually the religious link where we can start to see that Owen is questioning the church. He's not necessarily questioning his faith. He says that God is there in no man's land. And he says, there is no greater love, says the Lord, than to lay down your life for a friend. And so there is that idea that he believes that God is present, but not the church itself. And I think contextually, I think for Owen, it's a process of separating the two. The other thing is, because when we read it with that letter from Owen to his mother about his questioning of Christianity and God being there in no man's land, there is a link then, or an allusion to the idea that the soldiers are Christ-like. They are laying down their lives for each other. And I think we see this later in other poems. I think particularly if we read it with Strange Meeting, we get the idea that For Owen, the level of grief, the level of mourning, um, the is not the what is offered by a church funeral is not enough. Now, these men don't get a funeral. Contextually, we know so many bodies were left there. Many were not even buried. Um, and there was no time for this. And yet we get this idea that Owen is lost for words. He's striving to find the right words to send to perform that funeral rite for his fellow soldiers, and he fails to offer a solution. Okay, I don't know if some of that just got cut out because my computer just started playing up again. I don't know what happened. I think it's because I keep pausing because I'm sick at the moment and I keep coughing, so I have to keep pausing. So I am very, very sorry. Um, so going back to what I was saying, Owen is suggesting that well, he's not able to suggest anything. There is no replacement. The grief is so much, and the amount of men that are being killed, or the boys that are being killed, is so grave and great that there is nothing that he can offer. And the only solution he has is that tenderness of patient minds, and the drawing down of blinds, and this into a silence, into a deep mourning. Um, and I think that that is echoed significantly in Strange Meeting when we get to doing that poem. So we were saying in class that I think that the idea that we have that Petrarchan sonnet suggests that there is love in this poem brings me back to Owen's purpose, where he wanted to write of the pity of war. He wanted to show that pity of war, and he does it with tenderness. And when he says with the tenderness of patient minds, I think that's what we have happening here. There is a love in this poem, and the love is for the soldiers that have fallen, and it's been offered by Owen, and it's been reflected in the mourning of the families left silent back at home who don't have that opportunity to have a funeral. And I think that's where the love is. And he is trying to find words that are great enough to acknowledge the sacrifice that has been made. I hope that helps.